Welcome to the Brothers of the Sword Productions, Oak Island Prophesy, Part 5, My Treasure Location. Part 1 of this series introduces the four main clues of a symbol inscribed stone, Nolan stone outlined cross, an inscribed satellite stone, and a surveyed small stone triangle. And we'll touch on all of these clues in this part. Parts 2 through 4 interpret the symbols on the inscribed stone purportedly found in the money pit. In this translation journey, we're going to be focusing on what we've learned so far and draw our attention mainly to the surveyed small stone triangle and coordinate it with the dimensions of Nolan's cross. All this information is necessary for you to understand my ultimate treasure location. Our navigator, hierophant, and warrior, representing the Brothers of the Sword, displays gifted scientific understanding of the natural earthly world and celestial sky. Please refer to the previous parts for details of these translations. However, I will be doing quite a bit of review in this video to join together the information for a composite understanding of why I chose this particular treasure location. Right off the bat, I'm going to do a review of some of my findings because we're going to build something very similar to find my treasure location from the angles found on the surveyed small stone triangle. However, there is much more information in my translations in the previous parts that perhaps you would like to review. In Part 3, I introduced the idea of putting something in a box as inferred in the second symbol group on line 1. This group translated into the word find, from outlining an I and an N for the word in on the 4 dots. So it appears he is saying that the triangles should go inside the box. And a second word translated from this symbol group was vend, for the Estonian word for brother, and matched with the previous word sword is indicating that he was a sword brother. Technically, the order was called the Livonian Brothers of the Sword, and Livonia is the historical region of Estonia and Latvia. The Sword Brothers' main stronghold, Vilhande, was a huge fortress complex in its prime time, but unfortunately the ruins are just partial walls that were damaged during the Polish-Swedish Wars in the 17th century. And the brothers' main castle in Latvia was called Wenden, and today is known as Ses Castle, which is not far from the main city Riga, located on the Baltic Sea, that was used for centuries as the main trade port with merchants from the island of Gotland and Lübeck, Germany, because remember, the brothers were originally a German order. Let's go back to analyzing the message. The EN in the middle of the Estonian word vend is also indicating to put the triangles inside the box. EN is a prefix that means within, inside, put in, or go into. Now there's a really interesting second way to find the two opposing triangles, which had been presented earlier in this series. Mirror images were used to find the name William Wallace, which was spelled in medieval Gaelic as William Ulas. This utilized the two V's along with the symbol group directly below it. However, the V's translated into two U's since a U and a V were synonymous at the time. I consider the two V's the key because the V in Roman numeral is equal to 5, and putting two V's together makes the number 55. And as you will see, it is the base number surrounding my treasure location. Now if we make a mirror image of two V's, we have something that looks like two X's, but it's an illusion because he wants you to see the two opposing triangles. If we look at the translation of the symbol group that says 55 ored arrow, that actually also equals the word sword and word, it's telling you that the 55 is the origin number of the imaginary labyrinth that is supposedly superimposed over the area that surrounds my treasure location. It appears you have to metaphorically walk the sacred space to this treasure location. Absurd, you say? Well, let's go review part 1, where we analyze the satellite stone that has an H, 4 dots surrounded by a small Greek cross, and a circle with a dot inside it. The dot surrounding the cross is called a seed pattern for a labyrinth, and if you've been following along, you'll recognize the circle with the dot inside it as the symbol of the eclipsing star system, with the smaller star Algol B traversing in front of the larger star Algol A, and the H translates into an X. Now that the opposing triangles have been established, let's find the clues that circles are involved. We'll go back now and visit the first symbol group on line 1 that translates into 55 oared arrow and also translates into the words ord, word, and sword. As presented in part 1, the reverse percent sign after the two V's was discovered to signify the equator and two latitudinal circles on each side and means diameter and represents the letter O as well as the numbers 0 and 1. This is called the navigational great circle that coincides with the largest diameter of a sphere, and in this case is the equator. The navigational great circle represents the shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere, which for the Earth is the preferred route taken by ships and airplanes, and is found from a bearing and distance calculation. Using the Geo Midpoint Bearing and Distance Calculator, a 55-degree bearing and a distance of 2,601.5 miles from Oak Island lands you at the doorstep of St. Patrick's Church next to the sacred site of Ireland's Hill of Tara, and we'll touch on this further later in this part. The next symbol in this group is the circle stroke, which represents the radius of a circle, as well as the letter R and the number 100. The Greek numbers associated to the word sword add up to 360 to 361, and 360 is indicating the degrees of a circle. The first symbol group on the second line of the stone add up to 80, which is pi in the Greek alphabet, and pi is the circumference of a circle divided by the diameter, which is a never-ending number starting with 3.14. Now let's look at the last two symbol groups on line 2 that spells out .ri, betray. The RI is an abbreviation for Rex Imperator, meaning king, and betray in Middle English is missing the first I. These two symbol groups translate into king betray. The BTR is translated as an abbreviation for brother, and if you exclude the BT, you have Ray, R-A-I-E, which means radius of a circle in Latin. So there's ample enough clues to point to having circles circumscribed into the triangles. Now we're going to have to establish a few standards to find my treasure location. I will be using feet in my measurements because circa 1266 to 1303 AD, a royal English decree by the Act of Composition of Yards and Perches set 12 inches to equal a foot, and 3 feet to a yard, and 5,280 feet to a statute mile, or 8 furlongs of 660 feet. And this was codified again in 1593 to avoid confusion, which is rather convenient because some countries still use this antiquated system of measurement. From the clues left on Oak Island, I can put numbers to the sides of the opposing triangles, and as well the radiuses of the circles. My first instinct was to use the measurements from Nolan's cross, which I also consider a sword, and I doubled both arms from 360 to 720 feet, making the sides of the triangles 1,440 feet, thus giving a height of 1,247 feet for the opposing triangles. Therefore, the circumscribed circles will have radiuses of 415.69 feet, and I believe I was right because I found the number 415 twice in the inscribed stone's message. In part 4, we found all the clues pointing to a triple star system with 2 eclipsing stars named Algol that are considered the most famous eclipsing star system in history that can be seen by the naked eye. And also in part 4, I found the message Tare B. Tare is Latin for Taurus, and Algol is found in the Taurus constellation. Tare B is apparently referring to Algol B, which today is also known as Persei B. And then after the Tare B is the word tray. That came from the Middle English word for betray, and the word tray still retains its meaning of treachery and deceit. If you exclude the B in the additions, you can see that tray adds up to 415, and tare also adds up to 415. So now we have 2 opposing triangles with 2 circumscribed circles. I'm going to quickly review the rest of the diagram without citing too many measurements because I only want to take away one small tidbit of information to continue my treasure location quest. He wants you to add 2 more circles, but he never cites a height and only considers them hanging out of the original triangles by 56 feet, and we retain the idea of keeping the 1,247 height number. The number 56 came from the word find, and you need to add together the numbers for the word in to acquire the number 56. He literally does mean find in this symbol group and to find all the meanings that he's hidden in this group. We'll find another reference to 56 in this part, but it has other functions that I'm not covering in this part. This diagram is turned into a real mess with 2 opposing triangles, with 2 smaller circles and 2 larger circles. And now he wants you to add another circle in the center that is an average of the 2 diameters. So let's clean this up and take away the triangles, as well as 1 small and 1 large circle. And you get something that looks like this. And I'm loosely considering the larger red circle as algo A, and the small yellow circle as algo B. But I have a center circle that has a radius of 430 feet with a diameter of 860 feet. I puzzled over this for a long time because the only numbers that were remotely close or even the same was algo C's orbit of 680 days around algo A and B. So why the discrepancy? However, when I averaged them and added 860 to 680 and divided by 2, it equaled 770. And then I had one of those epiphany moments, coming to Jesus. Because I repeatedly came across numbers such as 440, 660, 880 in my calculations, and from now on we'll be bumping into these numbers as we work along to identify my treasure location. So it appears part of the message has to do with harmonic identities of vibration, sound, and frequency. And we'll find that the harmonic numbers will outline an imaginary labyrinth that will be superimposed for you to metaphorically walk to my treasure location. Let's clean up the reason for one puzzling number found on Nolan's cross before we move on. The average of the radiuses of the small and large circles is 429.619, and the boulder from the arms of the cross to the next boulder is believed to be 429 feet apart. Now let's apply the new rule that the same number can be switched around as in the numbers 860 and 680 while keeping an eye out for harmonic identity numbers. It's time now to apply the new rule with the surveyed small stone triangle. In 1897, Captain John William Welling discovered the small stone outline triangle that has now been coined the Welling Triangle. In the 1930s, entrepreneur and treasure hunter Gilbert Hedon rediscovered the triangle, or at least revived its existence into the public eye. In 1963, the triangle was surveyed by Arlick Walton before it was destroyed for further treasure hunting excavations. The survey discovered the sides of the triangle to be 10 feet each, and the angle on the upper left is 23 degrees and 26 minutes, and to the right is 36 degrees and 34 minutes, for a total of 60 degrees. I'm not sure why no one has noticed this before, but the 23 degrees and 26 minutes is the angle of the axial tilt of the Earth. These angles are given in degrees, minutes, and seconds, are also known as DMS, but there is no seconds given. And we can easily convert to decimal degrees, or DD, with this simple equation. Decimal degrees equals degrees plus minutes over 60. So we'll convert the 23 degrees and 26 minutes to 23.4333 and round it off to 23.4 degrees, because that's what he wants you to do. Surprisingly, this isn't the first code that I've had to do this conversion in order to find the answer. Anyhow, the axial tilt of the Earth, which is relatively stable for thousands of years, has deviated over millions of years from 22.1 to 24.5 degrees, and today is 23.4 and decreasing. The tilt of the Earth has more influence on the seasons than the distance from the sun or the amount of daylight that we get from the sun. This tilt brings the summer times of bounty and harvest, and winters of fallow and regeneration for times of dearth, reinforcing the cycles of nature, gods, and man. Let's focus on the 7 degrees from true north that was indicated on the survey. Nolan's cross once again comes in handy to adjust this number. Now, if you've noticed, there's a convex bottom to the surveyed triangle, indicating that Nolan's cross/sword should be set upright along the red line of true north. And if you also notice, the Brothers of the Sword seal is an upright sword with a cross above it. So I'm going to metaphorically swing Nolan's cross/sword up to true north and do a right triangle calculation with the 145-foot measurement that was found at the top of the cross, while using the old standby number of 1,247 feet to readjust the angle from 7 degrees to 6.6 degrees. And another rule pops up on the radar. You can move a decimal point around to make a larger number. The 10-foot sides of the equilateral triangle is indicating you can move the decimal point. So 6.6 times 100 equals 660, and here's another harmonic identity number. And we can change the number 55 that's surrounding my treasure location and expand it to 550. I don't think I've shown the Greek numbers associated to the symbol group for .ri that translates into king, but it equals 110 to 111. The circumscribed circle of an equilateral triangle with a height of 1,320 feet has a radius of 440 feet and a diameter of 880 feet, which appears to be the numbers that represent Earth to him. And there'll be other planetary aspects that will be presented after I find my treasure location. The 1,320 number is double of 660 and is found on the harmonic identity chart, but he wants you to double it again to 2,640. Now I'll show you 4 different ways to find the diameter for circumscribed circles and opposing triangles with a height of 2,640 feet. We're looking for numbers that are in the thousands so we can move the decimal point as previously explained. I already showed you the first way of changing the 6.6 degree number into 660 and multiplying it by 4, which equals 2,640. And this could be another reason for the surveyed numbers of 4 and 6 at the bottom of Welling's triangle. Here's a second way of finding the number 2,640. At the base of Welling's triangle, you see the number 4 on the left and the number 6 on the right. He wants you to switch the 23 degrees, 26 minute numbers around to 26 degrees and 23 minutes, and then convert them into decimal degrees for 26.38, which rounds off to 26.4. The third way is a really cool way, but not the coolest way, to find the number 26.4. You have to consider all the dimensions of Nolan's cross in minutes, and then convert them to degrees and add them together. And this is pretty cool because it comes up to 26.39 degrees, which rounds off to 26.4 degrees. The fourth way, and may I add the coolest way, to find the number 2,640 is using the diameter of the Earth. The Earth is not completely round, and the diameter varies between 7,913 miles at the poles to 7,926 miles at the equator. But let's use the number 7,920 miles and divide it by the numbers 12, 9, 8, 6, and 3, which equals 660, 880, 990, 1,320, and 2,640 respectively. And here's another series of really cool numbers. If you divide 7,920 by 99, 88, 66, 55, 44, 33, 22, and 11, they equal 80, 90, 120, 144, 180, 240, 360, and 720 respectively. And you see a lot of sacred geometry numbers in this. To me, the most intriguing aspect of the Oak Island message is that the Earth, number-wise, has an incredibly unique diameter. And keep this thought in mind because we'll expand on other planetary aspects with the inner planets after I show you my treasure location. Now there's no smoke and mirrors for my treasure location. It's in the center of the two triangles with the height of 2,640 feet. Starting at the arms of Nolan's cross/sword, going south 1,320 feet, or 600 feet from the tip of the cross sword, is my possible treasure location that was outlined by the clues of the inscribed stone, Nolan's cross/sword, and the surveyed small stone triangle now known as Welling's Triangle. However, I'm going to issue a warning right now that the numbers I used are only as good as the numbers that are available publicly. If there's other data that I'm unfamiliar with, all the bets are off. And I'd like to also point out that equilateral triangles lend themselves to running across many of the same numbers in their calculations. For example, if you have a triangle with the height of 1,080, which is the radius of the moon in miles, then the sides are 1,247 miles. Or if you have a triangle with the height of 720, then the sides are 831.38, which was the number of the diameter of the small circles that was on the first diagram. So perhaps readjustments will have to be made, but that's yet to be determined. Well, that was a trip to Hollywood and back just to find my treasure location. But now let's continue the planetary aspect thought. He expands the idea of the diameter of the Earth to the diameters of the inner planets of Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and wants you to divide these diameters by the number 18. 18 was a key number in Part 4. That came mainly from the Christograms for the Greek spelling of the names Jesus Christ and the Greek spelling of the Egyptian god Thoth. These abbreviations and names were found on the inscribed stone translation. So if the Earth's diameter number is 7,920 and we divide it by 18, it equals 440. And of course, divided by 9, then it equals 880. And this to Wallace represents the radius of the Earth. So then I got thinking about the planets and the 4 boulders along the length of Nolan's cross sword, and realized that the diameter of Venus of 7,520 miles, when divided by 18, equals 417.77, which is very close to the 415.69 radius that we found for the previous small circle radiuses. And then we found the 440 radius of the Earth, which is close to, but maybe no cigar to the 443.54 radius of the larger circles. So does this mean the first diagram I constructed, that loosely represented the eclipsing stars of Algo A and B, is now a diagram of Earth and Venus? Let's consider Mercury. Mercury has a diameter of 3,032 miles, and when divided by 18 equals 168. And we found the number 680 as the number of days it takes Algo C to orbit around Algo A and B, which in reality is in between 680 and 681 days. And last but not least, Mars's diameter is 4,212, and when divided by 18 equals 234, which when switched around to 432 is very close to the 429-foot measurement separating the boulder from the arms of the cross sword to the next boulder down. Here's a simple diagram showing how the planets fit into each other diameter-wise. The numbers inside each circle is the ratio found from the number 444, which came from the 443.54 radiuses of the larger circles. The only number I haven't explained is the 193, which is found when you expand the equilateral triangles with the height of 1,247 to 1,440. This entails not changing the height, but merely sliding them apart. The length of Nolan's cross sword of 867 feet, when divided by 9, equals 96.33, which is very close to the expansion of 96.5 on each side of the triangles, thus reinforcing the 193 number. This next diagram shows how the planets are aligned along the spine of Nolan's cross sword. The arms of the cross fit well with the 2,160-mile diameter and the 1,080-mile radius of the moon. Here's just a few more interesting calculations and numbers that will pop up. If you divide 2,640 by 9, it equals 293.33, which is the separation of the bottom two boulders of Nolan's cross sword. So now all of the measurements of the cross sword have been accounted for. And if you consider 2,640 as minutes, it converts to 44 degrees. And you can change that to 440 to represent the radius of the Earth. The number 867 length of the Nolan's cross could represent Mars's 687-day orbit around the Sun. Now we have clues that appear to be pointing to the extremely controversial musical tunings of 440 Hz versus 432 Hz. And perhaps we could even add the 444 Hz tuning into the mix. Could this medieval order actually have known about frequencies and tunings? On top of that, the arms of Nolan's cross/sword of 360 feet each seems to infer an association to the moon. I've always found it profoundly interesting that the radio waves propagated on Earth bounce off the moon and return to Earth. Could the moon be manipulating frequencies emanating from the inner planets? Or could a mixture of frequencies from all of the planets be affecting us here on Earth? Legends abound about sacred blue stones originating from Atlantis and later from Ireland that possess supernatural powers that were perhaps activated by sound or a combination of sounds. This legend is connected to the sacred hill of Tara in Ireland, in which we have made a connection to the Tuatha De Danann tribe, and goes back to the Sumerian creator god Enki, who is also supposedly the Egyptian god Thoth, whose name we found on the Oak Island inscribed stone in Part 4. The number 55 is also a bearing found by the two V's on the inscribed stone that takes you from Oak Island to the doorstep of St. Patrick's Church right next to the hill of Tara, and is connected to what is called the Stone of Destiny that supposedly roared when the rightful king put his foot on the stone during coronations. Could there really be sounds or combination of sounds that could cause rock to melt and be molded into building blocks, such as those that were found high in the mountains at the ancient site of Pumapunku in Bolivia? The precision of these blocks that fit together like Legos and the squaring of corners have eluded man to their mechanisms of construction. Could sound destroy, as in the legend of Jericho and the Ark of the Covenant, that supposedly tore down the stone walls of the stronghold of the city? Could these sounds or possibly words open up stargates and instill enlightenment in us mere humans? The possibilities of manipulating energy through frequencies to activate healing and spiritual ascension for the awakening of humankind is certainly a fascinating concept that is well worth further study. Humans are dire underachievers that need to wake up to their potential. I hope some truths will shine through the dark shadows that have been veiled by controlling entities to suppress human potential that has been lost in history and is now waiting to be rediscovered and exercised for the good of man and our planet. If I didn't find the exact treasure location, I believe I've taken a needle in a haystack and now turned it into a needle on a clean floor. And simple ground-penetrating radar would be sufficient enough to tell if soil in certain areas have been disturbed, since we now have honed in to where to look. There's more messages lurking in the Oak Island clues, but I gave you the abridged version just to find my treasure location. If you believe there's some truths in my work, please let others know. I'll be doing some follow-up videos that will discuss surrounding mysteries that I discovered through my research.